A huge part in GCSE citizenship is looking at how everyday people can make a difference in society and be active citizens. So we're going to have a look at that in relation to life in modern Britain. So press pause and try and have a go at filling the bits in. Okay, so we can make a difference by, the first thing is voting. That's the primary stage of living in a democracy, that we can vote and choose our leaders. But there's much more to being in a democracy than that. You guys can't vote, you're too young, but you can still join in pressure groups, you can still sign some petitions, you can still email your MP. And all of those things are part of being a democracy. The other thing you can do is stand for election yourself. So it could be that you join a political party, you ask to stand for election and they'll say yes or no. Or it could be that you go for your local council as well as being an MP. You can also use e-democracy, electronic democracy, which is much more common than it used to be. So loads of people every day set up on online petitions. Remember, if you get 100,000 virtual signatures, it's usually debated in Parliament. Because we live in an uncodified constitution, they don't have to debate it, but usually they will, because that's kind of the rules. So you could get an issue brought up in Parliament, potentially leading to laws being changed by you starting an online petition. Voter turnout, we know, is a problem, especially with young people. In the 18 to 24 category in the 2019 general elections, only about 58% of young people voted. However, the 75 plus category, 84% of those voted. That had got a massive problem because of their voting needs, of their interests. Older people, are far more likely to vote Conservatives, whereas younger people were more likely to vote Labour, Green Party and other parties. So that does have a huge impact on the result of the election. Reasons why people don't vote are things like they can't be bothered, so voter apathy, they don't really think they're going to make a difference. Maybe they don't understand, they don't know the difference between the parties. Maybe they can't get out the house, they might be old or incapable of getting to the polling station. And suggestions to change this, well, you could have weekend voting. That way you won't be at work all day, well, for most people, so you've not got the excuse of being tired. You could have compulsory voting, where you have to vote and if you don't, you get fined. But then that raises issues with democracy. Is it fair to actually force us to make people to vote? Do some people not vote because they're making a stand? Is it some people's way of taking part in democracy by not voting and saying that none of those parties represent them? The other thing you could do is argue for electronic voting, so vote by the internet. That way you get loads more young people voting and get their votes. However, the issue would be is that it could be hacked, and then that's going to cause even more problems. So different layers of protest, what we looked at in the last video. NGOs are your non-governmental organisations, your things like Oxfam, the Red Cross and Action Aid. Protest groups or pressure groups, we know that they can be global, but they also are mostly national or even local. And then individual action, one person making a change, people like Greta Thunberg, Marcus Rashford and so on. So have a Google of 38 Degrees, find out who they are and what they've done, and what is their platform, what do they allow people to do. Try and find a group that have used 38 Degrees and have been successful. The next thing you need to know about is police and crime commissioners. So these work with the police and other partners to cut crime. They are kind of the face of the regional police force. So at the moment, the one for the West Midlands is David Jameson, who's pictured here, and he is elected. So to become a police and crime commissioner, you are elected. You're not actually a police officer as such, you're kind of the public face of the police. You respond to local people's concerns. They're usually the people you see on the news, and they are under scrutiny from the public. They can control the budget and also hold their chief constable to account. So the chief constable is kind of the top police officer within that region. So pressure groups, trade unions, police and crime commissioner, you need to be able to name some, you need to be able to know who they are and what they do. So trade unions, for example, things like the NEU, the National Education Union, remember they work on many fronts, and we did this in Rights and Responsibilities. So they can do collective action, which is where they campaign for all workers in their sector. So that will be things like going on strike, which teachers, doctors, so forth have done. It could be walkouts where at a certain time you all get up and walk out to work, or it could be work to rule, like what teachers have done previously, where you only do the very necessities of your job. That way they campaign to the government or to organisations for the workers' rights. The other thing they can do is work on an individual's basis, so they employ solicitors and things like that who can help you if you think you're being treated unfairly within your workplace. The next thing you need to know about them within pressure groups is the different layers. So a local pressure group would be something like Save the Seven Cornfields at the back of Sedgley. National pressure group might be Fathers for Justice, campaigning for better rights for fathers to see their children. An international pressure group will be like Amnesty International, who campaign for human rights to be met all over the world. Single cause pressure groups just want one thing. So, for example, Save the Seven Cornfields just wants the Seven Cornfields to be saved. Multi-cause pressure groups involve a lot of things. So Amnesty International, they'll fight for the rights for women to have abortion, they'll fight for the rights of gay people, they'll fight for the rights of many different causes. Protective ones are about protecting whoever it is that they're looking after, so a lot of animal welfare groups do that. And promotional are ones where they advertise themselves to try and get more members. The next thing you need to know about with people being able to make a difference is voluntary groups. So for example, this is volunteers who work to try and better a situation. It could be a charity, so it could be Outreach for Wolverhampton that looks after homeless people within Wolverhampton. That's a voluntary group that looks after homeless people. They rely on the public to supply food and money for them to be able to do it, and they do make a difference. It's quite instant what they can do. However, if you compare that to the local council, Wolverhampton Council have got the power to rehome those people, whereas Outreach for Wolverhampton just rely on local people to provide instant help for those people who are homeless. The other kind of voluntary groups you can get is things like neighbourhood watch systems. More and more these are coming on things like Facebook, so you have like Spotted Sedgley or Neighbourhood Watch Cosley, those kind of things, and they'll report on local crimes and make sure people are alerted and aware of local issues. That way it's good because it gets out to a wide audience, it's quick, it's easy to do. But again, if you compare that to the public service of the police can actually go and arrest these criminals and investigate the crimes. So voluntary groups are brilliant, they've got a really good place in society, but compared to public services, are they that capable? Should it be they work together?